go to campus. Oh, sleep coming fast with the moon. And what we do when I used to. And in the morning we land. Whoa, you think I took a lot from you? You think I got my running to I said that I would promise to. I believe I'm for you.
Aloha! And we're going to do it again. Aloha! That's it. Fantastic. Thank you guys for coming. Mahalo. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you to the 2016 EdTech Team Summit featuring Google for Education. It's fantastic to be back here in Hawaii. I've got a lot of slides, so it might be best to have those up on the side screens for the audience if you guys can jump on it. I want to briefly introduce myself. My name is Mark Weiner. I'm a former high school English teacher, and I was lucky enough to be a tech coordinator at the school district and county level in Orange County, California. So really excited to be here with you guys today. Really excited to have been working with folks at Google for the last 10 years or so on their Google for Education efforts, and in partnership with them on these events. So again, thank you for coming. Again, I don't know if you guys can work this out, maybe, but it'd be great to have the slides up for the folks in this room. Is that what these are? I'm catching up, Mark. Cool. If you guys are online during the keynote, which I expect you'll want to be tweeting and sharing with your colleagues who are not here. You just want to use this information here. It's the HI Game Summit SSID. It's a different SSID in this room. So the password there is it's a little tricky, but it's capital HI exclamation point GAFE 2016. So if you guys want to jump online here, obviously your phones, but if you want to jump on the Wi-Fi here, this is the username and password. And if you're in the sessions here all day, that'll be the same situation. So yeah, those of you that are taking pictures with your phone, good plan. Also, the Wi-Fi information is on signs all over campus, depending where you're at. For most of the campus, you're going to be on the UHM network. They've created a username for all of us that we're just going to share while we're here. So this is it, HI Google Summit at crdg.org with that same mildly tricky password. So HI Google Summit at crdg.org with the HI Game 2016 password. Again, take a picture of it. It'll also be on signs around the campus. Once you're online, again, we hope you guys will be sharing with your colleagues who are here with you and elsewhere. If you use the Game Summit hashtag, people can search that hashtag, even if they're not following you on Twitter or Google Plus or Facebook. They can find the things that you're posting. Never mind, Instagram, Pinterest, whatever you're using, go for it. So Game Summit hashtag. You can follow this hashtag after we leave. As many of you know, we've been here several years in a row, and we're doing several summits a weekend elsewhere in the world. So if you follow this, you can keep in touch with educators all over the planet who are learning new things about Google for Education every week. So you don't have to wait for that yearly shot in the arm. You can just jump on the Game Summit hashtag. Many of you are here for PDE 3 credits. You can actually earn this event. And if you have any questions, you just go to the executive dining area at 1 o'clock or after lunch, or you can see Mary Beth, who's waving in the back from the Janus Group. You can go to the Janus Group table at any point. They're one of our partners in this event, obviously an amazing local group of professional developers. So if you guys want to join, see them about your PBE 3 credits, or else join us after lunch in the dining room. I don't know if you guys know, but back on October 21st, it was Back to the Future Day. Did anybody observe the day? Maybe watch the old movies, right? This is the day to which Marty McFly jumped 30 years into the future and rode a hoverboard and flew around in flying cars and stopped Biff-Tannen from taking over the world, right? Our future now is sort of in the past. Back to the Future Day is literally in the past. And I don't know if any of you saw Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd actually came on Jimmy Kimmel's show in character on October 21st. And they were just amazed by the greatest part of the future, right? The smartphone. We don't have hoverboards and flying cars, but we've got supercomputers in our pockets. Of course, Jimmy Kimmel explains we just use them to send smileys to each other. But the idea is that's this future is these devices that we're using in the your Chromebooks and your iPads really are the most amazing part of the future. The kinds of tools that we're learning about this weekend really have impacted kids' lives and are going to continue impacting their future more than what we expected. We don't have our jetpacks yet, but we've got supercomputers in our pockets. And when we look at, again, if we get the slides, we look at these kids. These are my boys a couple of years ago. We look at today's students, so they're in kindergarten and second grade right now. And if they had the most amazing thing about the future in their hands from the time they were doing tummy time, what does their future look like? And I can tell you, when Finn, who's in his onesie here watching his older brother with an iPhone, when Finn was 5, he started texting mommy, right? Go and take a bath. Nope. Somehow, at 5, he's captured his voice in the written word. Okay, fine. So what do we do when Finn's looking at virtual reality when he's in kindergarten? Google Cardboard and things like that. How do we prepare for them and in their future? And a question I've asked teachers at the Google Teacher Academy or now the Google Innovation Academy for about 10 years is, if you had a message from the future for the teachers of today, what would it be? And my inspiration, at least in part, is an old U2 song. I took this picture of the Edge in 2005 on my home trail. I'm actually this close to him. But Edge is playing a song called Miracle Drug. Any hardcore U2 fans here know Miracle Drug? Well, then I'll tell you the story. It's this anthemic rock song, and you wouldn't know this by listening to the lyric. But the backstory is the band went to school with a kid in the 70s who was a born paraplegic. Worse, he had no voluntary muscle use of anything in his body. There's no reason to believe he was anything other than a vegetable. But as the story goes, his parents had faith that he was. They included him in their lives. They took him places. They read him poetry. And at 13, they developed a miracle drug that gave him limited motion of his neck. They basically put a unicorn horn on him. He learned to type. And by 17, he was a published poet. Went on to be a novelist and lived well into his 30s. And there's a line in the song that captures why we're here for me. It says, with science in the human heart, there is no limit. And if we take technology like what Google's offering, educators for free, and we marry that with the heart of a teacher in the classroom, there is no limit to what we can do. And that's my message to teachers today. If I can deliver a message from the future, is that it's better. And if we can marry the technology of the future with the heart of the teacher, we can make a big difference in this world. So that's what we're after. As EdTech team, we're a global network of educational technologists. We're based in California, but we do these events all over the world, as you guys know. And we really believe that our brand, if you will, is inspiring and empowering educators. So when we go to the 100+ summits that we did last year, and we connect with educators all over the world, thank you, Monica. We're not going to be too loud for a moment until they adjust it. Okay, great. Great. That's not going to work. The bottom line is, if you guys are following the Case Summit hashtag and you're sharing there, you're connecting with educators who are all over the world, similarly passionate about marrying technology and teaching in the classroom. and we're after inspiring and empowering you, and I'll tell you a little bit more about these badges in a minute. We've got a really great team of inspiring and empowering educators with you today, so take advantage of that. We've got nice long breaks between the sessions. Be sure to engage your presenters, talk to them, grill them, pick their brains. And if you want to find your favorite presenters, this is the short link for the agenda. There's one on your badge as well. But edtech.team/HIV16. That'll bring you to the agenda on the site. We've got 4 full sessions each day, 30-minute breaks between them. We've got a full lunch, catered lunch here in the afternoon, and a catered snack in the afternoon. And at 4:15, be sure to be back here so that we can do the demo slam. The demo slam is, if you haven't seen it before, each participant gets about 3 minutes to demonstrate some tip, tool, or inspiring idea, and then you will vote on their demo slams. They don't take home the prizes. There's prizes for our audience members, but they're voting for the prestige of your votes. They're performing for it. We've got a similar schedule tomorrow with a different sort of closing, but 4 sessions with lunch and a snack. When you're looking at the schedule, you'll be able to see a lot of details. You'll be able to see what rooms we're in. For what it's worth, we are in the campus center here, and across the big tree and across the street, Kuykendall Hall has got most of the other sessions in it, so you're going to be here in the Student Center or across the big tree in Kuykendall Hall. You'll also be able to read all the descriptions, all the presenter bios there, see links to all of their resources. And you'll notice we've got hashtags on a lot of these sessions. So we've got beginner, intermediate, and geeky sessions. We've also got a full strand for iPads, so if you're using iOS in the classroom, I hope you'll come to that. And we've, of course, got future-ready focused sessions as well. We also indicate the audience, so whether it's elementary, middle, secondary, universal, etc. There's technical sessions for tech support staff that are here. So you will indicate that there, and we'll also indicate whether or not it's one of our spotlight speakers that we've brought in from elsewhere, or if it's your local speakers. So some of these sessions will offer a badge challenge. You guys might remember the stickers from last year. This is similar. If you guys complete a challenge during the session, you'll actually get a sticker badge for your phone or your laptop. So I hope you guys will take us up on that and earn your badges this time around. We're giving away 3, so you can get the Empowered, Inspired, and Change Agent stickers. Of course, we hope you guys leave as empowered change agents. We've got a few special sessions focused on Breakout EDU. The idea here is, I don't know if you've ever played an escape room where you pay to go get locked in a room with your friends. You got to solve clues to get out. We brought that to the classroom in a box, and you guys can actually play a Breakout EDU game during one of the sessions here at the summit. So you do have to sign up ahead of time because space is limited, but from the link on the slide or from the schedule, you guys can sign up for a Breakout EDU session. This afternoon, we'll be doing the demo slam. I more or less described that already, so guys, I hope you guys will be back at 4:15. Meanwhile, share and follow the hashtag, follow us on Google+, and if you haven't already, go downstairs and take a picture in the photo booth. It's a fun way to kind of, in teacher terms, lower everybody's affective filter, right? When you're having fun and you're being goofy with the poop mochi, then you're going to be a lot more ready to take risks in your sessions, right? So please see us at the photo booth. You can actually find the photos online at this link as well, at edtech.team/HI photos. So we're grateful to be a Google for Education partner and to have Jaime here today. We're also grateful for many of our other partners, including Max Cases, who provided the backpacks for you guys. And many of our platinum sponsors are here as well, so I hope you guys will see them at the table to get food and coffee this morning. A number of our gold sponsors are with us as well. And we've got several local sponsors, so we hope you guys will stop by their tables. They're all here. We've got to say a couple of special thanks. Special thank you again to the Janice Group, who has helped us organize this for 4 years now. And is helping with the PDE 3 credits and everything. Also to CRDG and the folks who have set up all of the AV and networking solutions here. They basically installed a separate network just meant to happen in this building. And to GEG Hawaii, who are very much the co-hosts of the event. So thank you to all of you. And a final special thank you. I need to go back to what Google often talks about when they're talking about moonshot thinking. It's an allusion to Kennedy's speech about we're going to go to the moon and we're going to do these things in the next decade, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. They didn't know how they were going to get there. The technology hadn't been invented yet, but they were aiming for the moon. And if you go to the Google X Lab, or you speak to anybody from the X Lab that's responsible for things like Google Glass and the self-driving car and Project Loon that puts balloons in the stratosphere to bring internet access to people in third world countries. When you talk to the people of Project X, they talk about moonshots, but they're at least as inspired by some historical moonshots well before Kennedy and the Eagle landed. In fact, if you see a lot of their laptops, they feel a particular kinship with the Polynesian Voyager canoes, people that actually migrated here over time. And they see, and when we had Richard Duvall speak at one of our events, he alluded to this, and he said, think about the Polynesian Islander in a dugout canoe deciding to go that way, as he said. And they didn't know what was that way. And as he put it was amazing, and it changed the world. Because with just their natural surroundings and the stars in the sky to guide them, the Polynesian Islanders migrated and populated 1,000 islands 500 years before Columbus around them. And that brings us to today, that same sort of spirit of looking to the unknown and aiming for the moon or aiming for 1,000 islands and not knowing how you're going to get there is part of what brings this event here to Hawaii. That vision, daring, and persistence. Several years ago, when Google Apps for Education first came out, and it wasn't in use here in the islands, there was a group of people who adopted this early and really blazed the trail. And Brendan and the folks at Janice and all of the StedTech team want to say a special thank you. I understand many of them are here today, so Jay, Ken, Jordan, Charles, if you're here, stand up, give a wave. But we all want to say thank you. So they could be in the overflow rooms at this point. But thank you guys. And just in the 4 years we've been coming here, we've seen a revolution in how educators on the islands are using Google Apps to make a better future for their kids. So we are thrilled to be here. And we're particularly thrilled to have Jaime Casap here from Google for this morning's actual keynote. But Jaime is the global education evangelist for Google. He's been doing Google and education longer than just about anybody at Google. We've been thrilled to work with him for most of the last decade. He's had a hand in launching Google Apps for education at the university level, at the K-12 level, in launching Chromebooks for education. He's the kind of guy for whom, if you had a plane, you would send the plane to get him. He's the Kanye West of education, Jaime Casap.
Hello, hi everyone. Good morning. So excited to be here. I've been trying to come to the summit for about 4 years because, when someone says, hey, can you come to Hawaii to do a keynote? I usually say yes, as quickly as you possibly can. I want to put up some contact information. I'm on Twitter, as Mark mentioned, the hashtag that we use for these events, Google Apps for Education summits, hashtags like EdChat, EdTech, all these great hashtags that are out there for people to communicate about what's going on in education. As Mark mentioned, I've been at Google for 10 years. I helped launch Google Apps for Education in the university space, in K-12. I've been involved with Chromebooks. My job is to work across the various teams at Google that are doing interesting things in education, that are focused on education, that are trying to create products and services to support what's happening in education. So my job is to work across all those different teams, and I've been doing that for the last 10 years. We have some great material online. If you haven't done a search for Google for Education, there's some great resources available for you, not just in terms of studies and examples, but also some great professional development that's out there. We have a whole team internally that's just focused on professional development, and so I encourage you to go visit some of the things that we're doing in that space. The latest and greatest, and I think you guys will get a little bit into this over the next 2 days, is around Cardboard and Google Expedition and being able to take students on field trips all over the world through Cardboard, and the things that we're doing in that space is pretty exciting. So some really cool things that we're focused on that we're doing. But what I want to talk about is why we are here. Why do we gather like this to talk about education? Why are we always trying to improve what we do in education? And it's because we realize that education is critical to our society. It's the most important thing that we can focus on because it can disrupt poverty. And I know this firsthand because this is a personal experience for me. So I'm a first-generation American. I was born and raised in Hell's Kitchen, New York. Not the Hell's Kitchen that you go visit today with all the nice restaurants and bars, but the old Hell's Kitchen, the one that looked like this, with all the dangers and issues that come with growing up in a place that's called Hell's Kitchen. Right? There's a certain level of expectation of what it's like to grow up in that environment. And my mother came to America from Argentina, escaping poverty and government oppression and all the issues that she was dealing with. Came to the US, I was born in New York, was raised by her as a single mother, grew up on welfare and food stamps, and showed up at PS 111, and they said, welcome to PS 111, and I said, okay, so I had to learn English. But this was not the nicest neighborhood to grow up in. And so I decided that the only way to leave a place like this is to get your education. And so I focused on graduating high school, I focused on graduating college, I focused on graduating from graduate school, and here I am getting invited to Hawaii to speak to you guys, right? That's the power that we have with education, that we can take kids that are growing up in environments like that and turn them into me's, right? There's lots of me's out there. One of the questions I get all the time is, how did I make it? How did I get out? And I like to pretend that I'm some super genius, and that's why I got out. But the truth is there's millions of me's out there. And that the only difference between me and some other kid is education and good luck. And what we need to do is minimize good luck as much as possible, right? That's what we want to do, and so we need to focus more on education. Now, I've had some amazing milestones in my career, not just at Google, but in my entire career. But there are certain milestones that kind of stick with you forever. This is one of them. Coming out to Hawaii and speaking to you guys is definitely one of those milestones. But last summer, I had one of those, super milestones, if you will. The First Lady of the United States asked me to come to the White House to speak at an event that they were having for about 150 high school students to talk about education, to talk about college. And I said, let me check my calendar. I said, I'll be right there. And of course, you want to do something like this, but in my head, my assumption was that this would be an event that was in some basement, some conference room with folding chairs, and there wouldn't be a lot of media or press. It would just be to go talk to 150 kids. But when I showed up, I realized that it was happening in the east wing of the White House. And I walked into the east wing of the White House, and the first thing I noticed was that Kennedy portrait that's up on the wall with Kennedy's looking down, and you've seen that portrait. And I said to the guy that's walking me through the space, I said, look, that's the Kennedy portrait. This guy works there. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, is it real? He's rolling his eyeballs because I'm sure he hears that question all the time. So like all this surrealness is happening where I am in the east wing of the White House, and I get walked through the blue room and the red room and all these other rooms, and was told that we're meeting in the green room. And usually for someone like me, a green room is some little space where they have a dry bagel and a cup of coffee. What they meant was the actual green room, right? There's a green room in the White House. And I'm like, where is this taking place? Where are we doing this? And he pointed to the east room at the end of the hall of the White House. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not speaking in there. Because this is overwhelming room of the east room of the White House. And so I get shuffled into the green room of the White House, and I'm standing there in the doorway about to be introduced to go talk to these 150 kids and all the people that are there, the First Lady, and all the people from her staff. And I'm standing in the doorway of the green room that leads into the east room, and I'm looking out the window of the White House. Like I'm standing there looking out of the window of the White House at the monument, and I'm looking down at the floor, and I see the worn out wood floor, and I think about all the people who have stood in that space, and all the presidents that are stood right where I'm standing. And they need to install bars there, because you just get weak and you want to fall. And you stand there, and you open up the doors, and you walk into the east room of the White House. and it's lit up, and the lights are about 1,000 times stronger than this, and there's about 1,000 cameras and video cameras in the back pointing at you, and you walk through the crowd, and everyone's dressed up in their suit and kind of sitting up straight. And don't know why they're sitting up straight, but they're sitting up straight, and walk up to the podium, and this is what it looked like. Oh, that's the cue to put the slide up on the thing. And so this is what it looked like, and I noticed the George Washington portrait, the gold curtains that we're used to seeing. I'm up on that podium, and I didn't have a chance to like check out the stage before I walked in, and I noticed the red carpet that's in front of me. So you know, the door's open, and there's a red carpet, and it's that red carpet, you know, where the president walks down the red carpet, says, you know, we killed Bin Laden, and then disappears. And I'm looking at that thing, going, oh, that's where that is. And I'm standing there, and this is all happening in microseconds. And all of a sudden, I look at the lights, and I look at the gold curtain, I look at the George Washington portrait, and I see the red carpet, and I think, I'm inside the television set. I'm inside the TV. That's what it feels like. And then I looked down at that microphone, that podium, and they had set this up just for me, because I was the only solo speaker that was speaking that day. I also ran a panel for students, and this is all online. You can find this online. I still haven't watched it because I'll pass out like I almost did doing this. And I looked down at that microphone that they set up there, and I think that this is one of the most powerful microphones in the world. Like, what I say into this microphone matters and can be recorded. And for that microsecond that I'm standing up there, the hoodlum in me, that New York City hoodlum in me, I just want to scream Baba Booey right to that microphone. And the reason I'm standing here in front of you is because I didn't. And so the power that we have in education is that you can take a street kid from New York City and have him speak in the issue in the White House. That's what we do in education. That's the power that we have in education. But we also have to recognize that the power that we have in education goes beyond those street kids that we can put in the White House. The impact that you have on students goes on for generations and generations. You are going to impact students that you will never meet in your entire life. You will be long gone, sorry to break this to you, and there will be kids that benefit from what you do in your classrooms today. Because now I have my kids, and my daughter does not like this picture very much, because she assumes that you guys assume that that's her kid, and it's not. I have a 23-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old. And when I took this picture that I realized that I don't actually like kids very much, or that I can only handle one at a time, right? I can only deal with one at a time. My 23-year-old is in Argentina now, my 14-year-old is somewhere stuck in his room, and now I can play with my 1.5-year-old. I like that setup. I have a social experiment. I have a kid in every single generation. And this is a picture of my daughter graduating from college. And we never talked about college. It never came up. She assumed she was going to college because I went to college, because her mother went to college, because people in her life went to college. She assumed she was going to graduate school because I went to graduate school, and her mother's a teacher and she went to graduate school. And she assumes she's going to go to graduate school because she can't live in a world where I have an advanced degree and she doesn't, right? So she's way too competitive for that. She also assumes I'm paying for it, but that's a good problem to have, right? Their perspective, their point of view, how they see life and what they see in front of them is so fundamentally different than it was for me. And that happened in one generation. And my daughter, like I just mentioned, is in Argentina working for a nonprofit right now. And she doesn't know that the reason she's doing that is because of my 4th grade teacher, and my 6th grade teacher, and my 9th grade teacher. She's never heard of them, never met them. She's heard stories, but that's the impact that we really have in education, is that it goes on and on and on. And so if that's true, what we want to do is make sure that we're building the right education system for the future. Because it's that critical, it's that important. And my slide thing is not, so who's coordinating the slides up? Can you just keep the slides up, leave them up there. Thanks. Everyone can see me, right? All right. So when we think about the future, we think about what jobs we have for the future, we have to think about what we want to focus on. I'm not on the bandwagon that we we need to fix education, or that education is broken, or that teachers are terrible and they're not doing the right things. I don't like that rhetoric. Because if you think about education, if you understand the history of education, you realize that we're doing education better than we ever have before in the history of education, right? In 1910, the graduation rate in this country was 8%. The content that we teach kids in school today is 1,000 times stronger than it was 100 years ago. The United States is a superpower, and everything that we've been able to create and build was based on the foundation of the education system that we created, including the GI Bill and everything else that came with that. So to me, it's not that education is necessarily broken. I don't want to look at it that way. I want to look at it as a calling. Because I think what we need to do in education is exactly what our education ancestors did 150 years ago, and ask ourselves, what's the right education model that we need for the economy that we're facing? Because they did a great job setting up the education system that we needed for that economy. We need to do the same thing. In 1973, 28% of the jobs required some kind of post-secondary education, college degree, some kind of certification, something like that. Today, about 60% of those jobs require some kind of post-secondary education. What does an education system need to look like to reflect that economy? That's what we need to focus on. What are the things that we can learn? What are the things that we have done so well over the last 150 years that we can implement and keep doing? What are the things that we need to do new? And so it's a calling for us to think about exactly what our ancestors did 150 years ago and ask ourselves, what's the model that we need to create for the future? What does that look like? And so when we think about the future, we have to realize that the future is already here. We talk about the jobs of the future, we talk about what we need to do in the future, and the truth is the future is already here. For example, computer science. The Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts that by the year 2024, there will be 1 million computer science jobs in this country. And yet, when you think about the STEM field, and we talk about STEM all the time, we don't necessarily talk about computer science in STEM, even though it's right there in the word. But 71% of those STEM jobs, when we talk about the future of jobs, are going to be in computer science. And yet, only 8% of those graduating in STEM fields have a computer science degree. And so there's a misconnection between what the future is and what we need to focus on. And we've done a number of studies, and again, you can go do some research, or you can do a search for some papers that we've been able to produce around research around computer science, and we found some interesting things. 9 out of 10 parents want their kids studying something in computer science, but yet only 1 in 4 kids, 1 in 4 schools offer a computer science class. So we have to think about the types of classes that we're offering. And when you think about the future, the economy of the future, 40% of jobs in computer science pay more than the average college degree. Here in Hawaii, the average salary of someone with a computer science degree is $75,000. Here in Hawaii, when we think about Hawaii, there's about 1,500 computer science jobs open right now, and only about 155 computer science graduates. And by the way, 1,500 jobs doesn't sound a lot, but when you look at the states and the jobs that are available in computer science, that's more than Montana, Nebraska, I think, Vermont, Maine, North Dakota, South Dakota, Dakota Johnson, anything that's named Dakota. So if we really want to think about the future, and we really want to focus on the future, think about where computer science fits in this world, and how do we want to build skills around computer science. And you guys are well positioned to help create some of that and push that envelope on what we do in computer science in this space, because the reality is the future in computer science is in every state, every industry, every type of work that you can think about, there's a computer science element to it, so we want to make sure that we're focused on that. And part of why we can do this is because of technology. Now, for most of history, the closer you were to a book, the more likely you were to get educated. The more books you had, the more education you could have. That was true for a long time. And it was true in my lifetime. And if some of you are old like me, it was true in your lifetime. Because for me to get my hands on information, for me to get my hands on research, I had to go to this building called the library. And this is where they kept all the books. And this is where they kept all the reference material and the research material. And this thing called microfiche. They used to have to turn with your hand. So they get like blisters on your thumb from turning that wheel. This is where the information was. And this building would close at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and basketball practice would go to 4:45. It wouldn't be open on the weekends. Or if you finally found the book you were looking for, after going through that card catalog and memorizing that 17-digit number that you needed to find the book, you'd go up on the shelf, and there was a really good chance that the book wasn't there. Because this wasn't my library. It was everyone who went to PS 111, PS 17, PS 45, PS 51, Sacred Heart, Holy Cross, and everyone who lived in Hell's Kitchen. This was our library. This was our resource center. Today, we have 100 million Columbus libraries at our fingertips. We have all the world's information at our fingertips, but we haven't shifted what we do in education to meet that. The education system that we created was built on that whole model where we had these libraries of information and how information was processed and used, and how long before you changed out textbooks, and how long before you changed out your reference material. Today we have 100 million Columbus libraries at our fingertips. The question that we should be asking isn't whether we should be using technology in education. The question we should be asking is, how do we use technology in education? How do we take advantage of this? What does education look like when this is a fundamental difference between how we used to do things and how we can do things today? Now, when we talk about technology in education, we've been doing this forever. We've been talking about technology in education forever. First, motion pictures. That was going to revolutionize education in the 1910s. Television was going to start revolutionizing education in the 1950s. Right? We were all going to just sit in front of Sesame Street and get educated. And computers, we've been talking about computers since the 60s. I took a computer class when I was in 8th or 9th grade. I think it was 9th grade. Because computers were going to be important for my future. Even though I'd never seen a computer before, and it'd be like a decade before I saw another one, I took a computer class. And I learned how to program in BASIC. And it took me about 9 months, about 5,000 lines of basic code, so that I could make a bird fly across the screen on the Commodore 64. Remember that? And I remember sitting there going, that's it, that's what it does. So why is it different this time? Why do we keep talking about technology in education? And what is different this time? Because we've been talking about this forever. I'm going to propose 3 things. First, we've been able to collect some amazing research on what good learning looks like over the last 150 years, and especially over the last 25 years. Some great work out there that you guys have studied in school, some great research that's been out there about like what good learning looks like, how it has to be engaging, how it has to be relevant, how we can make it personal and personalized, and all these other things about what good learning can look like. And we haven't been able to implement it given the current models that we use. Now, we can look at that again and ask ourselves, how do we use technology to bring these ideas to life? We don't have to invent anything new. All the great research has already been done. We just need to go back and through some of that research and say, this makes sense. Now, how do we use technology to bring it to life? And so I think we're starting to get to the point where technology is usable enough where we can do this, where we can actually scale, where we can manage, where we can do things in a different way. And how do we bring all these great ideas to life? And that research keeps coming at us, and we keep having to ask ourselves, how do we bring this to life, given the models that we currently have? So that's one. Second is this idea that technology has wrapped itself around the core of our own lives, and we don't even recognize it. Unlike when I took that computer class in 9th grade, there was no technology around me. I just took that computer class. Today, computers and technology is just part of our lives and we don't even recognize it anymore. For example, how many of you have not used technology today? It's like 9 o'clock in the morning. How many of you have not used the web today? My favorite answer is, no, I haven't used the web, I just check my email. That's my all-time favorite answer. Every once in a while, someone will put their hand up because their 14-year-old decided to watch all the episodes of Big Bang Theory on Netflix and they don't have any data left. But most of us don't even recognize that this has happened, that no one in here raised their hand. How long did this take us? The iPhone is what, 8, 9 years old? I don't even know, 9 years old, is it? 8 years old? The iPad is a couple years old, the Chromebook is a couple years old. I mean, if you have a BlackBerry, you're embarrassed. Like, you use it by hiding it. And that thing's like 12 years old. Do you remember we used to have to call the internet? With our home phones? And the internet was busy? And you were okay with that? Yeah, I tried the internet, it's busy. I'll just try back later. That wasn't that long ago that we used to do that. And what was our reward when we finally got online? There was a bunch of web pages that had words, links, other web pages that had words and links, and that was what got you all excited, that all this information was showing up on your screen. And every once in a while, someone would post a picture, and you're like, there's a picture coming. I have to wait a half an hour, but there's a picture coming. And what's your expectation today? Right? Instantaneously. Teachers, the most understanding, the most patient people in the world. I've seen you turn into mobs at conferences if the Wi-Fi is too slow. I myself have to fly back today, back to Phoenix, and I feel like I'm going into a time capsule because there's no Wi-Fi on my flight between here and Phoenix. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself for 6 hours on that plane. And I get frustrated because the Wi-Fi is too slow while I'm traveling at 40,000 feet and flying at 535 miles an hour. This happened relatively quickly, this change of expectation, and it happened in our lifetime. And if that's true for us, what does that mean for a generation of kids who are growing up not knowing that the world existed before Google? A generation of kids that don't know that the world existed before smartphones and tablets. A generation of kids who don't know that the world existed before Wi-Fi. Talk to a 10-year-old about Wi-Fi and tell them that you're going to go to a place that doesn't have Wi-Fi. They're like, what? Are we going camping? Where are we going? I must go to this place and take pictures and post it on Instagram. Like the idea that the world existed before these things doesn't make sense to them. And so how do we take advantage of the fact that they don't know any better? How do they take advantage of the fact that they are just growing up with technology as a part of their lives? Now, I'm not saying that this generation of students is different than we are, and I would be wary or cautious of anyone who comes up here and says, this generation Z, or this technology generation, the web generation, they're different, they're wider different. They can they're born with technology, they instantly know how to use technology as soon as they pop out of the womb. And they can multitask and do 3 things at the same time. No, they can't. They do 3 things at the same time poorly, just like we do 3 things at the same time poorly. They are no different than we are. Don't be scared of them. But what we do have to keep in mind is how they think about learning is different than the way we think about learning. And we almost have to write that down on a Post-it note and keep it on our computer screens and think about it every day. How they think about learning is different than the way we think about learning because of the time that we were born. That's it. Not better, not worse, different. And I'll give you a very relative example here. A couple of years ago, we went on our summer vacation. Every year we go somewhere else. And, you know, I grew up thinking that everything on the other side of the George Washington Bridge was the West Coast, so I don't want my kids to have that same experience. So I travel somewhere every year. A couple years ago, we came to Hawaii for the first time. This is my second time here. And my daughter, who you saw a picture of, hates to fly. She's much better now. She's traveled a lot in the last couple of years, and she's gotten better. But she's one of those people that hated to fly, scared of flying, thought about everything terrible about flying. And I have to get her to Hawaii from Phoenix over water at night, I think, which is the worst combination of things. And so I have to come up with a way to get her on that plane. And like any good parent, I drugged her up and I bribed her. And I said, when we get to Hawaii, we can get a ukulele. Because she's a musician, she plays instruments, and she wanted one. Not one of the $10 ones that you find in the hotel gift shop, but one from a real store. First of all, I didn't know you can spend like 10 grand on a ukulele. And the truth is, I didn't know you can spend $100 on a ukulele. But we went in and like, what's your entry-level ukulele? And we got that ukulele, that $100 ukulele. And this wasn't the store. This was actually from the hotel lobby. I just took this picture yesterday. But it's a good example of what it looked like. But we're in a store like this, buying a ukulele. And again, keep in mind my role and what I do at Google. And we're leaving the store, and I noticed in the corner store, because I just invested $100 in this bride. $100 is a lot of money to invest in a kid. And we're walking out of the store, and I noticed in the corner of the store instruction books and videos on how to play the ukulele. And I said, and I still regret this, hey, do you want to pick up an instruction book or video on how to play the ukulele? And she looked at me with that teenage disdain look. That like, you're irrelevant and you don't even know it look that I came with, and walked right by me. Why? How is she going to learn how to play the ukulele? Right. I learned, and we learned, when something was packaged for us, when it had some kind of certification label on it, when it was official. These kids don't think about learning that way. We have to stop trying to get kids to think about learning the way we think about learning, and get us to think about learning the way they think about learning. The picture before this one here, this is my 14-year-old when he's 13, if you can see here. He comes into my office, he was 13 I think at this time, and he's showing me his lines of code. He taught himself how to program in Java because he plays, at the time, he was very heavy in Minecraft. Him and his friends were playing Minecraft, they had their own server, they were running some kind of casino, and one of his games wasn't making enough money. I kept waiting for the FBI to break down my door. But he needed to modify a lot of the games, and so he had to teach himself how to code in Java. Never brought it up to me, never asked me, never gave me my... I work in Google, and he never asked me where he could learn how to code. He just figured out how to learn how to code, and taught himself how to code. And now he's doing game designs, but he's showing me his first line of code, very proudly here, of what he was able to develop. How they think about learning is different. How do we take advantage of that? How do we take advantage that they don't know any better? How do we take advantage of giving them the power to go figure out how to learn things? Now, when we think about the future, we think about the skills that kids need. There are very specific things that we need to make sure that we focus on. And I'm going to put up this slide here that shows you a study that we did with The Economist about what are the top skills that are needed in the workplace. And this list came up, problem solving, teamwork, communications, critical thinking, creativity. This list has been the same for a very long time. There's nothing new on this list. These are the skills that our kids need. And so when we think about those skills, and we think about what we do in education, I would encourage all of us to start asking new questions and stop asking some of the old questions that we ask, focused even around this. For example, one of the questions that I dislike the most, and people ask my 14-year-old this question all the time, What do you want to be when you grow up? I hate that question. One, there's a really good chance that the job that he's going to be doesn't exist today, right? 60% of jobs, 60% of kindergarten kids today are going to be working in jobs that don't exist right now, in the future. I'm working in a job that didn't exist when I graduated college, let alone high school. And so when we think about that, it doesn't make sense to ask that question. It used to make sense to ask that question when we had like 10 jobs. Remember back then? That's how old I am. We had like 10 jobs, right? You could be, a farmer, a police officer, a firefighter, a doctor, a lawyer, right? Those, like, pick one. How does he know he doesn't want to be a biomedical engineer, or that he wants to work with sustainable living materials to create living structures, or all the other kinds of jobs that are available? So instead of asking our kids, what do you want to be when you grow up, which is an old question, I want to ask our kids a new question, which is, what problem do you want to solve? What problem spins in your head? And it doesn't have to be, some global problem like solving world hunger. It could be making cars go faster. It could be making vacuum cleaners quieter, which is a problem that you think we would have solved by now. Every cat and dog in the world would thank you. But it's the process of problem solving, right? It's the computational thinking that goes into problem solving. It's the ideas that go into problem solving. Because when you ask the kid, what do you want to be when you grow up, you're really asking them, who do you want to go work for? And here's the scary thing about this generation, Generation Z. 41% of them don't want to work for you at all. They want to do their own thing. And maybe that stat was true 30 years ago. But only 10% of Americans today own their own thing, own their own business. And the difference is that today you can actually do it. You can take a group of people, grab some laptops, get some server space on Google or Amazon, and you're off and running. But when you ask the kid what problem you want to solve, you're asking them, what do you want to focus on? What's your purpose? And then you can ask them a follow-up question, which is, what do you think the knowledge, skills, and abilities are that you need to solve that problem? What do you need to learn to solve that problem? Where can you learn that? What classes can you take online, offline? What blogs are out there? What videos, what documentaries, and so on, and so on, and so on. We get closer to the magic triangle of motivation. I don't know if you've read Daniel Pink's book. I encourage you to read that book, Drive. But that idea of autonomy, purpose, and mastery. So when you ask a kid what problem you want to solve, you're really asking them, what do you need to master to solve that problem? And who can you collaborate with to solve that problem? This is one of my favorite pictures of the Google Science Fair that we run every year, and I would encourage all of you to encourage your students to join, but the girl there in the middle, one of the winners, one of my favorite winners, she's not your typical science student, whatever that means. But there was a problem that she wanted to solve. One of her best friends lived in the Philippines. And by the way, again, something that's different between us and our kids is that we were stuck with the 5 kids that lived on our block, right? That's the lot we had. These kids can have friends anywhere in the world. And my 14-year-old has friends all over the world. And one of her friends lived in the Philippines and didn't have electricity, and was upset that her friend couldn't read or do her homework at night. So the problem that she wanted to solve was giving her friend the ability to read and do her homework at night. So she invented a flashlight that's powered by the heat of the human hand. And she's 15. The guy next to her, the guy that won the 2 prizes, he just invented the ability to create bioplastics out of banana peels, but he's 16, so he's a slacker. The capacity and capability that our kids have is tremendous if we open them up. We give them that idea about figuring out what problems they want to solve. And most likely coming up with a new way of thinking about things that are fresh and original, because they're not jaded the way we are when we think about the way we think about solving problems. They don't have the "we tried that before" attitude. So that's one. What problem do you want to solve? The second thing is, I want us to stop thinking about or talking about teaching kids how to fail. I get it. I totally think it makes sense. If we want to continue doing it, I'm okay. I'm not going to jump off a boat for it. But the problem with teaching kids how to fail is that it has an opposite word, which is success. Failure has an opposite word. We don't live in a world of failures and successes anymore. We live in a world of constant and consistent iteration. That we're constantly moving, that we're constantly doing things, that we're constantly improving whatever it is that we work on. And what we teach our kids is that an A is success. But is it? What's an A? What's a B? What's a C+? Why are the endpoints in what we do? What we really need to do is teach our kids how to constantly iterate. For example, if you used Google last night and used it again today, there's a really good chance you're using a different version of it because we update Google about 600 times a year. If you use Google Apps, some of you who use Google Apps, you know that we update Google Apps about 200, 250 times a year. If you're using Chromebooks, we launch a new version of the operating system every 6 weeks. And it's not just us, it's everything. We live in a world of constant iteration, constantly changing, constantly improving things. And we want to make sure that we're focused on teaching our kids how to do that, that there is no end point in what they do, that they're becoming lifelong learners. And that getting a grade or getting some stopping point isn't where you stop. That's just the next step in an iterative process. We want to make sure that we're teaching our kids how to iterate. The word collaboration we've talked about before in education. The problem is we don't mean it. Because education is set up as a single-player sport. The problem is that we live in a team-based world. It's my 14-year-old who takes tests, gets exams, gets assignments, does homework, and then gets marked as an individual, which is fine, but that's the world that we live in. That's the world he lives in, but we don't live in that world. Imagine as teachers, you hand out a typical test in 8th or 9th grade, and at the end of the test, 2 kids come up to you holding the test together, saying, we decided to combine our skill set and work on this together. What would your reaction be? Why are we teaching our kids that collaboration is cheating? Now flip that into my world, and imagine I go to Sundar, who's the CEO at Google, and I say, here's the education strategy. I did it all by myself. Did I work with any other team? No, I swear, did not work with any other team. Did I talk to our users or our stakeholders? Nope, they're not involved at all. How long would I have my job? We have to teach our kids real collaboration, not group work, real collaboration. And there's something cool about real collaboration because there's something comforting that I know that whatever I create is only going to get better when I put it in front of other people. That my part is part of a greater sum, that together we're working on a common idea or a common problem. Real collaboration is the ability to listen. Real collaboration is the ability to ask good questions. Real collaboration is the ability to change your mind, which is something we kind of need. Real collaboration is the ability to build consensus and drive something forward. How do we teach our kids real collaboration in our schools, and that they're working together towards a common goal, and that we're able to fit kids together that make sense to create these collaborative teams so that they can learn how to operate in this world? And finally, we want to make sure that we're building strong visual leaders. Because again, just because they're born with technology doesn't make them technology experts. Just because they're born digital citizens doesn't make them good citizens. We have to teach them how to do this. How to vet information, how to make sense of information, how to make sure it's credible, how to research. You know, if something doesn't show up on the first Google page, they lose their minds. How do we teach them how to really make sense of what's coming at them? And the information is coming at them at a level that's just increasing every year. For example, if you have a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old like I do, he or she is trying very hard, like mine is, but they will never be able to watch every video on YouTube. Because about 100 hours of video gets uploaded every minute on YouTube. How do we teach our kids to make sense of all that information that's coming at them? How do we teach them how to be strong digital leaders, that they know privacy and security and they can be good digital practitioners, and that they're building their digital portfolio? And if they're not learning how to do this in school, where are they going to learn how to do this? This is one of my favorite pictures that I pulled off the internet because it's this whole idea, that argument that I hear all the time. There's books that are written about this, these kids, this generation, they don't look you in the eye, they don't talk to you, they're stuck in their face, in their devices, and I'm always like, what do you mean, like this? So how do we make sure that we build strong digital leaders? And so what I think we need more than anything is a culture shift, to think about education from a different perspective, from a new perspective, given the economy that we're facing, a globally connected, network-based, knowledge-based economy. What does education need to look like for that? And again, making sure that we're asking different types of questions when it comes to education. Even the questions that we ask in our classrooms. A couple months ago, I saw something that said, or last month, that 7% of Americans can name you the first 4 presidents of the United States. And this was a negative article, right? This was supposed to be a bad thing, that 7% of Americans. And I read this article and I thought, is that a good thing or a bad thing, and why? Right? Why is this true? Ooh, the vibe in the room here changed, especially up here. Everyone all of a sudden looked down. Because I can point to one of you, like we do in our classrooms, and ask you to name me who the first 4 presidents are. Many of you have advanced degrees. And if you don't know who the first 4 presidents are, other people are going to make fun of you for the rest of the conference, like we do in our classrooms. Even though they didn't know who the first 4 presidents are, they just didn't get called on. Or I can give all of you 30 seconds, and all of you can tell me who the first 4 presidents are. In the world that we live in, information is a commodity. It has no value. What has value is what we do with that information, and how do we take that information and convert it into intelligence. How do we help our kids take that information and convert it into intelligence? Because the question isn't, tell me who the first 4 presidents are. The better question is, what would the United States of America look like if Thomas Jefferson was the first president? What would the US look like if Adams was the first president? What are the 5 things that the first 4 presidents agreed on? What are the 5 things they disagreed on? Who won and why? And how did that shape our country? You get to understand things at a deeper level, and guess what? You still will have to know who the first 4 presidents are. And there's a really good chance that 20 years from now, you'll still remember who the first 4 presidents are. How do we get to deeper, meaningful questions, given the world and the infrastructure that we have? The good news is that we're starting to see this in lots of spaces. And I get to travel around the world and visit lots of schools, and I know I didn't get a chance to visit any schools here, so just have me back anytime you want. And I bet you I will find classrooms that look like this, that are collaborative based, that use technology as enabling and supporting capability, as a resource that's there for them, that group work turns into collaborative work, and it's project based, and they're making things, and it's really exciting to see all these things that are happening in education. And I'm starting to see experimental learning models and collaborative experimental learning models where kids are building things together. I love the maker movement that we have in this country and around the world. To be honest with you, about kids building things and making things and actually accomplishing things. Competency-based education, where we're actually building the skills that kids need for the future. This is a picture from Mountain View a couple months ago, or last month. We had 20 superintendents from Texas up in Mountain View, California, and we taught them how to code. So this is one of my favorite pictures because if a superintendent can code, anyone can code. And they were totally into it too. But at the end of the day, nothing is more important than having a great teacher in a classroom. When that door closes, the most important thing that we can have in education is having a great teacher in the classroom. And it's what we need to do, and what I do with leaders in education is talk to them about giving teachers the space to experiment, to try different things. The professional development that they need to thrive in these new learning models that we're creating. Because the role of the teacher in a technology-infused world is even stronger and more important than the world that we're coming from. Because if you guys are really focused on building project-based learning and collaboration and teams and being there as a coach and a mentor, as a manager for all the great things and projects that are happening in that space, you need much deeper skills than you currently had in the old model. And it's events like this, and today and tomorrow, and everything that you're getting from this, the energy is exciting to see and hear, and I couldn't be happier that you guys are doing this kind of stuff, because this is what we need. We need this kind of professional development for our schools, for our teachers. The bad news, depending on how you look at it, is that there is no future classroom. I get this question all the time from the media, which is, tell me about what a future classroom looks like. And the truth is, there is no future classroom. And it certainly doesn't look like this. Because to me, this doesn't look that much different than this. Because what I think we need more than anything in education isn't some new model that we can all implement. What I think we need more than anything is a culture of iteration and innovation. That we're constantly changing what we do in our classrooms. That we're constantly improving what we do in our classrooms. Because the old model, this one, like, you know, the future learning model, the future classroom, that to me is an education leader that says, look, my life used to be very stable like 10 years ago, where we did the same thing every day, and it's been disruptive over the last 10 years, and I would like to get back to just being stable again. The problem is we don't live in that world anymore. We live in a world of constant iteration, and our school systems have to reflect that. I'll give you a Google example of what this looks like. This here is the original Google.com. This is it. This is where Google started, and at Stanford, when Larry and Sergey put a bunch of machines together, and this is what they launched. And this is what Google looks like today. Right? This is one row of the gazillions of servers that we have in data centers all over the world. And there's two things that I want to point out to you. First, this is not what Google looked like on Monday, and then this is what it looked like on Thursday. This took 17 years of what I'm talking about. Communication, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking. All the things that we want to do in education, it took us 17 years to get to this point. And the second thing is that this is not what a data center would look like 17 years from today. There is no future data center. There's just constantly learning from what we do in iteration to continuously improve and build. And so a data center 17 years from now is not going to look like this, but we don't know what it's going to look like because we're constantly going to change it. And I think that's what we need more than anything in education, is that mind shift. To think about the fact that really the change in education isn't some model, isn't something that we can all implement and do at the same time. Really what changes is just a group of people that are dedicated to the change and are just doing it. This is a picture of a group of us, and I'm there in the middle, and there's a superintendent there. We're building a school in Phoenix called the Phoenix Coding Academy, where it's an inquiry-based school. It's a real high school inside the district. It's an inquiry-based school where computer science will be the core language that kids learn for 4 years. Not a track, the language. They're going to take history and computer science, biology and computer science, math and computer science, English and computer science as part of their core of what they do. So in 4 years, we'll have the first class of about 100 Latino kids in the middle of downtown Phoenix graduating with 4 years of computer science experience and project-based learning to go with that. And I'm betting that what we're really doing is building the Kobe Bryants of computer science. Right? That they might go straight from high school to Google or wherever they want to go do. If they want to go to college, I think they'll be some scholarship money for them. And it's just literally a group of us that came up with this idea, and we're building this, and we're asking new questions. For example, a typical magnet school has an application process and test score requirements and grade requirements. We don't have any of that. We're building a passion-based school. If you're passionate about computer science, you want to learn computer science, we don't care if you have straight B's, come to our school. We believe we can fill that gap with your passion. And we're doing this so that we can prove that you can be innovative and iterative inside a public high school system, that we don't need to create something new. That really what it comes down to is a principal and a group of teachers deciding to do something and then just doing it. And so we've gotten some great reaction. It opens in the fall, and I'm more than the world excited about this, because that's what it takes. It takes a small group of people to actually get this stuff done. And here's the good news. We are just the very beginning of all this. If you are in education, you guys in this room, you are what's going to create what the future of learning looks like for the next generation. I don't know if you signed up for that, but that's what you're going to be doing. And it's been 100 and 150 years since we've done this. You guys are the ones that are going to be building this. In 1995, 1% of the world was online. 1%. 1995 was not that long ago. You remember 1995? It took 10 years to get to the first billion people, 5 years to get to the second billion, and 4 years to get to the third billion, and yet only 40% of the world is online. We are at the very beginning of this. So I want to leave you with this thought as you go off for the next 2 days and think about how we bring technology into our classrooms and do things in different ways. I want you to think about a 5-year-old. And I want you to think about whatever technology you have. When I asked you how many of you have not used technology today, whether it's your MacBook, your iPad, your Apple SB, I don't know what number those guys are up to, but the phones, or your Apple or your iPad Pro. Anyone they're like this big? I can't wait to be at the Grand Canyon this summer and watch people walking around like that. I'm just gonna kick them right off. For me, it's this Nexus 6P. I don't know if anyone else has one of these, but the Nexus phone from Google. And I want you to think about that 5-year-old and this latest and greatest and hottest technology that you have in your possession. And I want you to realize that this is the worst technology that 5-year-old will ever see in her life. This is their Commodore 64. In 20 years, they're going to be shopping they're going to be hipsters shopping in a thrift store, because that's what hipsters do. And they're going to find this phone in a 50-cent box. And they're like, oh, I have to have this phone. I have to have this phone. Because they're going to want to hang it on their shelf like a museum piece. The way I know some of you have old technology hanging on your shelf like a museum piece. For me, my prized possession is a working StarTech 3000. And they're going to want to put it on their shelf like a museum piece. They're going to remember, because they're going to remember this technology from their youth. And they're going to remember it. She's going to be to her friend, like, oh my God, you guys, my dad used to have one of these. Oh my God, I totally remember. He used to have to plug this into the wall. Like every day. No, like every day he'd have to plug this thing into the wall. Like he'd be stuck there. He'd be yelling. I'd take money out of his wallet and he'd be trying to chase me and he couldn't because he was stuck to the wall. Those are the 5-year-olds that are coming into our school systems in the fall. Do we have the right system in place for them? Do we have the right infrastructure? How do we use technology as an enabling and supporting capability so that they can focus on building the knowledge, the skills, and abilities that they are going to need to solve the massive problems that we have in front of us? That's our job. That's our calling. That's what we want to focus on. So have a great conference. Thank you very much for having me. And thanks for having me.
This another reason that we have long breaks is so that when this happens, we're okay. So we'll still start the first session at 10 o'clock. Your sessions will be either in this student center building or at Kuykendall right across past the giant tree. If you need elevator access, that's going to be in the Kuykendall Annex right next door. So sessions are levels 2 through 4. Have fun. Learn a lot.
If you're watching online, we'll be back online in 15 minutes at bit.ly/Hawaii on air. Come join us for the next session. Thanks for coming. Hey,